G'day listeners and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout Buyers Agency. I'm your host, Sammy Gordon, and first up, guys, I want to apologise. I know we've missed a few episodes over the last month. There's been a few things going on behind the scenes, a few things for myself personally, and actually, funnily enough, that is what we're going to be discussing today. We're doing something a little bit different. I had a few chats offline with Big Jimmy, who has joined me in the studio today, and we decided, first cab back off the rank in punching out some fresh poddies was really, I think, to go through and dissect this. So, like I said, guys, it's going to be a little bit different, more about a story and a bit of a bunch of life lessons that kind of came about. And when Jimmy and I talked about this offline, we thought it would probably be pretty prudent and jump in and kind of talk about this stuff and, put a lot of different things into perspective. So Big Jimmy, mate, welcome back. How are you?
Good. I'm very good, Sammy. Yes. G'day, listeners. Good to be back up here on the GC. Good to see you again.
Likewise, buddy.
And, mate, we were talking about this, and for our listeners out there, you hit it on the head. This is a little bit different.
It is.
And it's actually a good context of what we're trying to achieve anyway with property and investing. So we don't know if this is going to go 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, or even 40 minutes.
Who knows, mate?
Who knows? And if I can just preface this by saying, I know you pretty well, right? And I know that this might not be in your wheelhouse of being comfortable to talk about these kind of things. But yes, we did miss a couple of episodes and people were wondering what's happened to the bull shark. Has he gone out into the Atlantic? Where has he gone? So to approach this is takes a lot of courage. And yes, I mean, different things happen to different people, right?
100%.
And what's important to you is different to what's important to me. But the context of today's podcast is for people to really think about, take something out of this as what can it relate to your life moving forward in anything that you do. And so why don't you set us the scene as to what actually happened and why you took a couple of weeks off?
Yeah, man. Look, I think the reason I wanted to do this as well was because, like you said before, you know me pretty well. I'm someone I like to go hard all the time. I'm not someone that typically likes to sit on the laurels and take it easy or anything like that. And I think what has kind of transpired is really it's made me put a bit of a check on myself and really analyze. And I remember it was my first day back because I took a couple of weeks off, and when I was talking to you about everything, mate, I even brought you to tears a little bit, not because it was boring. That's normally you to me. But it was because of essentially what happened and just kind of really putting some things into perspective. And when we're talking about, what are we going to do potty wise, getting you up for the next one and everything. And I was like, I want to cover this off first because it really hit home for me. And it, mate, to be dead honest with you, it caused me a lot of regret thinking about it after everything had happened. So, look, to jump in, guys, probably a lot of you thinking, what the bloody hell happened? Some of you guys listening probably do know. If you know me well and if we're close, or even if you follow me on the socials, I post 3 times a year on average. And obviously something, has happened just recently. And look, to set the scene, pretty much to hit the nail on the head earlier, I lost my dog of 8.5 years. About a month ago now, or a few weeks ago now, whenever the bloody hell it was. And I think losing her, like a lot of people have kids, right? They have kids and people who are very close to their dogs or who have had a dog that they're very close with, they'll understand this. I've never had kids. I've literally had the little girl since she was 8 weeks old all the way through till we lost her. And I think some things that really, there's some things we'll dive into that really rocked me with this. But I think, man, like what happened was, to set the story, I think, of what really rocked me with this is, she's 8.5, mate, fit as anything. Like, you take her to the beach, she'd race around like a little beast for bloody 2 hours and she'd be fine. And I'd take her with my sister and husband. We'd go with the kids and she'd run around, go crazy, and they'd be knackered. They'd almost fall asleep on the beach. They're that tired by the time they're done, and she's still ready to go. This is literally a couple of weeks before everything happened. And then, man, like, we were supposed to have 2 weeks off. This is Morgs and I at the start of August. And we were just running ourselves absolutely into the ground before we took this trip, just getting everything ready and just being in front of everything and really hustling deals for our clients before we took some time off. And then, mate, it was literally 4 or 5 days before we left. She had a seizure. Which she'd never had before. And I woke up, man, in the middle of the night. I said to Morgs, what the bloody hell was that? And it's been cold, been winter. So I've had Big Tuzzy inside. And it was like, man, it sounded like a zombie. It was like, and I'm like, someone's broken in. There's a junkie or something downstairs. So I bloody grab the baseball bat, run downstairs, ready to put someone out. And here she is, bloody passed out on the ground, just really like this huge, deep breathing. And mate, like I thought I was bloody losing it then. Like it was hectic. And I just grabbed her and I called out to morgues and I said, buddy, call the vets or whatever. Like, let's see where to take her and all the rest of the stuff. And she was looking me straight in the eyes and I was freaking. I know me because I came around and I grabbed her and she's like never had an issue in her life. Like absolutely pristine. Like I give her everything I can, all different supplements, everything. I was adamant, that she was going to live 15, 20-year-old shepherd, You take her to the vets. I was telling you a story the other day. You take her to the vets and they think she's 2 or 3 years old. She's in that good nick.
Not one grey hair, did she?
Not one grey hair. It was a crazy thing. Her whole muzzle, like entirely black. Most shepherds start going grey around 3, 4, 5. And by 5, they're normally getting pretty grey. She's 8, over 8. And she was pure black, like face. Like it was crazy. So I was adamant that I was doing all the right things for her. Anyway, this event happened in the night, took her into the vet, and pretty much they said to me, it was a freak thing. They checked the heart, check all this stuff. It was like, it must have just been like a freak seizure. Everything else is checking out fine. So we went from being like bloody, this is literally in the middle of the night, on a bloody Saturday night. I think we got home about 6 a.m. or something.
And you were planning to go. You going the next day then?
No. This is like a week before, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, this is on the Saturday night before we were supposed to take these couple of weeks off. My parents were up at the time as well. Coming up from Sydney, came stay with us for a few days during bloody cold old Sydney winter, and then the next day, man, like she was literally sweet. She was 100%. And then we thought she was, took her down the beach again because that was a favorite thing to do. I always took her down the beach, raced around. She was literally raced around for like an hour, like a day after this thing had happened. And then she was good for like, I think 3 days after that. And then on the third day, I left. I got like a 6 a.m. flight down to Sydney. I had a couple of podcasts, SBI, different things. And I was flying, but it was literally a single day thing. Flew down 6 a.m., got like a 6, 7 p.m. flight home. And she'd vomited in the day. So morgues had taken her to a different vet. And then they were feeling around and feeling her heart and stuff. And they're like, "Oh, this doesn't sound good. Sounds like she's a bit of a murmur or something going on there." So we took her to this big clinic up on the Gold Coast that does all this stuff. And they had all the right machines. The local vet didn't have all the stuff. And they took her she took her to this other place. And Morgs calls me after I'd finished my podcast while sitting at the airport. She goes, "You're going to need to come to the emergency. They're doing all these tests and she's got a fair bit going on." Anyway, long story short, she had really bad heart disease. So even though she's racing around nonstop, absolutely fine,
healthy as anything.
She's apparently got this really bad heart disease. She's also got this heart arrhythmia stuff, like whatever's going on with that. And at the time, we thought that this seizure was due to the heart kind of not pumping properly at the time, and so they didn't have enough blood in the brain. So that at that point in time, that's all we thought it was, because she'd only had the one seizure as far as we knew. So, we've got her on all this medication. We did all this stuff. They're like, "Oh, mate, all this sort of stuff's expensive stuff." And I said, "Mate, honestly, I don't give a shit. Like, this is like, think of this dog as my child. That's what it is. So just do whatever needs to be done." So I did all these tests, all these different things. And yeah, man, it came out like it's, she's got this heart arrhythmia, which is irregular beating heart, combined with heart disease. It doesn't pump properly. It's not a great mix, not a great combo. And so they put on all this stuff and then she was going pretty good. We didn't think it was anywhere near as bad. No one made it out as if it was like ridiculously bad, right? And we were supposed to leave on Thursday morning. We were heading to the airport on Thursday. And that was Tuesday. We were a bit worried, but we're like, they're just telling us it's the heart stuff. We get all this stuff under control, and we should be sweet. And then on Wednesday night, we were kind of packing up, getting ready to go and do all this stuff, getting our bags ready. I think we finished work at 8 and we're packing to get ready for this.
It's always pretty rushed trying to get out the
100%.
wrap up.
And we're having dinner, somewhere around 8, 9 o'clock or whatever. And she had a seizure and we're like, "Oh shit." And we're like, what do we do here? We called we called the emergency vet and they go, "Oh, look, it's probably just related. It's still pumping. If she has another one, but bring her in." Anyway, long story short, finished packing at about midnight. I literally jumped into bed. midnight, 1 o'clock, something like that. And I'd pulled her into the room, so I knew if she had another seizure, she normally sleep in there. And literally as I got into bed, I heard something. I looked over, and she's having this hectic one, like full hectic one. It was long enough that Morgs was downstairs. I yelled out to her. She had time to run up and actually film her having this thing, so that we could show the vet what it was. And then when we took her in, so we rushed her straight to the emergency then after that one. And we showed it to them. I go, oh shit, that's not due to the heart. That's brain. Like there's something, that's a brain. I can't remember what they called it, some seizure. And they go, so now there's something else going on with this stuff. And I just said to Morgs, fuck it, don't worry about this trip, like we'll just cancel. So I just cancelled the flights in and there. So I was hoping I'd get a bit of a refund or whatever it was. And while we're sitting there waiting for all the analysis and everything, and at about 6 a.m., 6 a.m. or whatever, we kind of got the results of everything that was going on. They're like, look, her heart's too weak to put her in for a CT scan to check her brain to see what it is. So we've just got to take a guess that it's either a tumor or she's got brain disease as well. There's something else going on there too. And this is Wednesday night, kind of Thursday morning. And they're like, look, just leave her in now for the day. She's on all the stuff. If she has anything, they put a little bell on a collar. So if she has a seizure, it'll shake, and they can pump this stuff straight into her to stop it straight away, to stop any sort of damage on the brain. And they go, just leave her here for the day. We'll call you in the afternoon with an update. They're doing all these tests and stuff, all this different stuff, just to see if they could find out everything they could about it without going down the route of having to CT her. And then anyway, pretty much the following day, it was around about afternoon of the Friday, we went back in to pick her up. Everything had kind of fallen back into place. And at no point at this point had anyone really told us it was life-threatening. They kind of told us, she's got obviously a few things going on with the heart and everything, but it's manageable with this medication.
She's stabilized, right?
Stabilized, yeah. And then when we went in, they go, look, we're going to break it down for you, and this is going to be hard to hear, but she's probably only got about 12 months of life. And I was livid. I was angry. I was like, I didn't say it, but I was furious. And like when I left, I was going, there's no way. I said I was going to give her everything I can. I'm going to find all this stuff, and we're going to supple her up and give her all this different stuff. To make sure she gets through as long as she can. And Morgs and I were talking about, we're like, what are we going to do about this trip? Because like they said to us, they never said it was imminent. They said 12 months plus, right? Like she's probably got circa around about 12 months. And you've always been one to tell me, mate, go all out. When you go on a trip, man, don't budget or half-ass it. Like you've done well enough in property, you've done well enough in business. Like do this thing properly. It was the first trip I'd ever done it properly and gone all out and gone all this mad, like accommodation, all this stuff, all non-refundable. I was like 30 grand deep on this bloody thing.
Oh, jeez.
And
shouldn't have listened to me.
Should never listen to you.
Should have got the IBIS, the budget,
just the camping, mate. Middle of winter in New Zealand.
The backpackers.
But yeah, man, I'd gone all out on this thing. I literally was surprising Morgs and most. She didn't even know what it was, and I'd booked like helicopter flights over like the glaciers and stuff in New Zealand, mate. It was awesome with stuff we'd had set up, and I just said to Morgs, I just go, because they literally hadn't even said life-threatening, I didn't even think about the chance that she could pass away in this period, right? That we were away. Didn't even come into my mind. And I said to him as well, like, what are the chances of getting the past 12 months? He goes, mate, with all this sort of stuff, that you're giving her and you're giving her all the right medications, if we do all this sort of stuff and you get all these few extra supplements and stuff, he goes, man, you could maybe push it over, but like, that's probably what you're looking at. You're probably looking around 12 months. And I was like, I just said to Morgs, I go, fuck it, let's go do this trip. I said, I'm going to rebook the flights. We'll fly in direct into Queenstown. We'll do this. It was about 10 days in New Zealand, and it was 6 days in Fiji. And I said, let's just go. Let's just do this thing. And then we get back. We won't go on a trip until we lose her, and we'll just give her the best life we can. We'll just, bloody love her as much as we can, do everything we can. And so we rebooked, and she was pretty good because my parents were staying there at the house at the time as well. She was just drugged up. She was just kind of like walking around a bit dopey and stuff, but everything was under control. They said like, all this stuff has dropped. They even with all the like all this steroidal medication for her brain and stuff. And they're like, all this stuff should reduce the swelling and stop the chance of seizures and this sort of stuff. But even if it does, if she has one seizure, just give her these tablets and it will lessen. If she has a second one, bring her in and we'll just monitor her and stuff. Wasn't supposed to be an issue, right? We just didn't even think about the fact that we could have lost her. So we left. We ended up, I booked the flights. We left on the Saturday. I think it was around the Thursday. She had another seizure.
So you were over there.
Yeah.
everything's all good.
Everything's
she's
good.
At home.
She's sweet, man. She was good.
She's all good.
Mm-hmm.
So literally 3 or 4 days have gone.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, all right, we're in the clear now. She's on the mend.
I wasn't even like coming into my mind that hectically, like, you know, because they didn't make out as if it was life threatening. They just made it out as if something we had to manage for now. And we were even talking about all the things we're going to do with her. We're like, when I'm like, when I get back, I want to try and wean her off these things so she's not quite as dopey, like as docile. And I still wanted to be able to enjoy life. I'm just going to see what we can wean her off, give her the best 12. Yeah, if it's 12 months, I'm give her the best 12 months of her life. And then we got a call on Morgs' mum had come down at that time, was looking after her, and I think it was on the Thursday or the Wednesday night or something. She had another seizure, so she took her in and they minded her. We spoke to them on Friday morning, and the vets were still like very confident. This is a heart specialist, and it was a brain specialist. These 2 vets, and they were very confident in her. And she copped a bit of lungs on a fluid on her lungs from the seizure, and apparently it's a different one. It's like a higher protein fluid from the seizure. It comes from a different spot or something and gets in there. And yeah, man, and they're like, oh, we're a little bit worried because she hasn't shifted that. And I just said straight away, mate, are there any chances, like, is she on last legs here, or is she sweet? Like, because if she's on last legs, mate, I'll drive to bloody whatever airport I can get to in New Zealand right now and we'll fly home. He's like, no, mate, we're not at that point yet. And I just want, obviously, like, these guys, they'd never dealt with, and this is a big clinic that has dealt with everything. They had never dealt ever with a dog that had a brain issue, like either a brain disease or a brain tumor, heart disease, and a heart arrhythmia, which is an irregular beating heart. They'd never dealt with it before.
One on its own is enough, but you're dealing with three different things. Jesus.
And that's where I wish they just said, because the first week everything had happened, I was very angry. It was a good thing I wasn't in the country. Let's put it that way, because I was very angry. And anyway, the hard thing was as well, they all loved her. She's the best dog, man. You met her multiple times. She loved
I thought she was going to kill me the first time I met her. But
great guard dog.
She's the North. If I can paint the picture, the first time I went to Sammy's house when we were doing one of the podcasts, I was too scared to go outside. I think it was a bit of childhood trauma, because I remember there was this German Shepherd that I thought was going to try and eat me as a kid. And then when I saw Tara, I thought, am I safe being in here? And it was always when you were around, she was fine. But as soon as you left, she'd look like, what are you doing? Who are you?
She's the ultimate protector. Like she was a beast.
But once you got to know her,
she loved you.
She was such a beautiful, like just such a kind dog.
Yeah,
right?
100%. So anyway. And that's the thing, man. Like I had such a close bond with her. Like we'd been through everything. And then yeah, man. So that was on the Friday morning. He's like, no, I think it's okay. We're gonna up a diuretic, like all this stuff to kind of like fix it and everything. And he's like, I said, what's the best thing here to get a good, like what? And he goes, mate, the best thing we can do is keep her on the oxygen. Because if she's got on the oxygen, she's not breathing as hard. The oxygen's just getting into her lungs anyway, so she doesn't have to breathe as hard. So it's all good. It won't be as much of an issue. And I go, yep, no worries, just leave her on that. And he goes, mate, it's about $3,000 a day. I go, mate, I don't care. Reiterated, she's like my daughter. I don't care. I've never in my life said money is not an issue. I said to this guy right now, mate, money is not an issue. She needs to survive. You know what I mean? Like she has to survive. And I felt weird saying it, because I'm not, you know what I mean, man? I'm not that sort of person to say something like that. But I just wanted him to know whatever it takes for her to be good and to, because they kind of made out she just needs to kind of clear this fluid, because she hasn't had a seizure for 5 days. So she's obviously, it's working, it's improving. She's on the mend. She's had one and it's caused the issues. Long story short, man, like that afternoon, we'd missed a call from him. We'd missed a call from him. We called him back like straight away. And yeah, man, he said that she'd literally passed away. She passed away. And he was on the call. He called us because it had been 10 minutes and they stop at 10 minutes of resuscitation of like CPR. Man, I've never cried I can never remember crying in my life, like genuinely crying in my life about anything. I cried for about 4 hours straight, like I was a mess. Morgs had never seen me like that. It was an absolute mess. The first thought that came into my head was, what a dog you are. Like I can't say what I thought of myself, you know, for not being there. Like at the time, like she's been with me through everything, mate. She was with me when I was a poor man. She was there with me when I was going through everything at the start of the business. And the first 12 months of business is always a shit fight. It's always hard. Been there with me through everything. I wasn't there with her like at the end, man, it just absolutely killed me, that she was in a vet's, and the vets, they all loved her, and we knew they all loved her. All the girls that come in, they'd cut her all the time. She loved, attention like that, and she was in good hands. But I remember at the time I wasn't thinking that. I was just thinking, you prick, like you weren't with her when all this sort of went down. And man, it's just like immediate regret, and just like hectic regret. You know what I mean? Like not just like, oh, I regret not going through that red light because now I'm 5 minutes late, sort of thing. Like serious regret. And then just everything started flooding through my head. Like, all those times that I should have taken her to the beach in the afternoon, and I finished at 8 o'clock and I was too tired to take her to the beach. And so I should have finished at 5, 6 o'clock and taken her to the beach. All these sort of things that were just like, she was always there waiting. I don't know if you've ever seen the photo. There's a photo I see it all the time. It always pops up heaps after this thing happened, right? Fucking iPhone reading my mind and shit. And there's this guy sitting on a bench at the beach looking out over the water, and he's got this little bubble above his head of all the things he's thinking about. He's thinking about the cars, the everything, you know what I mean? The house, the jets, all the rest of stuff, the travel. And here's a dog, and the dog's bubble is exactly where they are. It's them sitting on the park bench together with dad doing his thing. And it's just like, like you're their whole life for their whole life. And they love you so unconditionally. And the fact that I wasn't there for that, mate, I was ready to kill someone. Like it was bad. Hence not recording a poddy for obviously a couple of those poddies that were released since then were banked eps. Haven't recorded anything in about a month or whatever it's been. Man, I was bad, And I think like, that's why when I got back and I'd kind of calmed down a bit, because actually, I'll tell the rest of the story there. When it all happened, I couldn't even talk to him. I was furious. And Morgs had kind of finished the conversation. This guy was crying. He was crying because she'd been in there multiple times, and like he knew that she was such a good dog, such a nice dog, nice natured. And man, it was weird, And then I said to Morgs, I said, we're flying home tomorrow. We're supposed to fly to Fiji tomorrow, and I said, no, we're flying home tomorrow, because they said like after a couple of days you don't really want to see the dog. Like a lot changes in after 3 days.
Yeah,
so I said, no, we're going home tomorrow. So we flew on Saturday. I saw her in the night. We saw her in the night. As soon as we got in, we drove straight to the vet and went and saw her in there. And I made it a little easier for myself because I said, well, we're not going to do anything. Like we'll go then, and we'll go on the Sunday, and the Sunday will be the last one. So I went and saw her for it. Was, I don't know. I don't know if people think it sounds a bit weird or morbid or whatever. But we're there for about an hour on the Saturday, and I came back on the Sunday. I was there for 2 hours, man. I couldn't leave, man. I was just crying the whole time. I couldn't leave. It was bad. It was bad, and eventually, Morgs is like, we got to go. Like, we can't stay here for 4 hours or whatever. Like, and she was super upset as well. But she sometimes she can cut through when I'm I don't know, in that scenario, she was able to cut through and kind of pull me out and pull me away, sort of thing. But yeah, she said to me kind of a little bit after, she'd never seen me like that. Like, even when she went, like I was like, you can't help when you just like clenching, unclenching your fists and just like carrying on. And I couldn't do it. Like it was that bad. And I just had to walk. I just walked straight out at that point because when they wheeled her away, I just knew that was the last time I'd ever see her. And she's been my best mate for over 8 years. Literally love this thing that much. It's not funny. And then, yeah, man, it's just like that constant regret. And it just made me think about so many things. And this is why I think, like, when I came back and I was like, I want to talk about it, for one, like, because it put a lot of things into perspective for me. And there's a lot of things that we talk about on this as well that I think really needs to be put into perspective or put into context as well. Because we were talking about sacrifice and all the rest of it as well. And I think, like, to paint the rest of the picture is after that, I couldn't stay in the house. So, I came home and it was the same on the Saturday and on the Sunday. Like, every time I used to walk there, I turned, I talked to her straight away. Every morning, go out 5 a.m., give her a cuddle, go to whatever I was doing. That was just my thing, right? And I couldn't stay in the house. And I just said to Morgs, I'm booking a flight to Fiji. Like, let's just go. Let's just finish this trip. I can't stay in this house. And pretty much, yeah, we went, we did that. It was good because it got us out of the house and it kind of helped me get past it. It was also the weekend, so I couldn't go and see the vets in person on the weekend. They weren't there. So by the time I was able to actually talk to them, I, again, wasn't in the country. And it was good because I was able to, like, kind of be a little calmer, and Morgs could kind of direct it a little bit and kind of get the answers we needed, sort of thing, for closure. The big thing that helped me over that week was really that they said, if we'd picked this thing up a year ago and we told you 12 months, which realistically potentially could have happened if we'd picked up something with the heart, because she wasn't running with 12 months ago, she couldn't run with me. And she was getting a bit limpy and stuff. And I just thought she's getting a little bit older. They told me, if she is 7, 8, whatever, because they thought she was like 2 or 3, but she couldn't run it as well. And she couldn't keep up with me as much in runs. So I stopped running her. And he said to me, if we'd picked this up like a year ago, she might have been dopey for a year. Like knocked out a bit and not
on
like
all the meds for the next year.
Yeah. So like the only real solace and everything I take out of it is the fact that she lived a mad final. She did live a final mad 12 months. Like she was literally running on the beach for an hour within the last week that she'd passed away. So we didn't give her it wasn't like she had a crap existence at the end. Obviously still got my regrets I wasn't there with her and everything as well, but it kind of put a lot of things into perspective, and I kind of got a little bit more closure while I was away and a bit more accepting around it, as hard as it was and as hard as it still is. And that's why when I came back, that first Monday back when we stayed on after the team meeting and had a bit of a chat about everything, I was like, I just want to do an ep on it because I think we need to paint a bit of a picture and put some things into context around what we're talking about as well. And yeah, man, kind of really just kind of talk about that and yeah, man, like first thing I wanted to do back was actually pay a bit of a tribute to her. She literally was exactly like you said. That's exactly what she was like. She was the protector of the home, protector of us. But then as soon as she knew that you were accepted as part of us, like you were part of the pack as well, and she'd look after you. But it was funny because if anyone else had come in while you were there, she probably would have gone crazy at them as well. That was her, you know what I mean? She was like a protector in that as well, and I love that, man. And yeah, man, I think it's just like, just putting it all into perspective, it was just so, I've lost, like, in my life, I've lost all my grandparents. I've lost a couple of mates and everything as well. I've lost some people that I thought were close to me, and it's funny. Nothing has ever triggered me to cry, and then you lose that, and it just put everything into perspective. It really kind of changed a lot of my thinking, I think.
Dude, thanks for sharing that. That is, knowing Tara and knowing you and having a little puppy myself, and just, you can't help but feel that tingly emotional feeling. And if you're listening to this, and people who don't have pets, or if you think of your kids, I mean, whatever's special to you, it's the same feeling. And obviously, I know it's not easy for you to talk about it. That's why I was just loving letting you, chat it out and hearing you say it.
When I first told you that. When I first told you that when we got back, you were crying. You were crying at the end of it.
It was pretty hard to hear because I could feel the pain from you, and obviously, you're one of my best mates, and I feel sorry. I felt an empathy for you that I couldn't actually. You can't fix anything. You just have to hear and just share in the sadness and just go, dude, it sucks, and also I could feel the regret that you had and what you were doing to yourself and beating yourself up. And it's just a shit situation. Like, cause I mean, I'm not sure if you've forgiven yourself because as we spoke on that phone call, dude, I mean, you can only base your decision on the information that, like, these experts, if they've told you a certain thing and the timing and like, there's nothing you can do. So holding on to that element of it, is only going to eat you away. Have you sort of?
I think I don't know if I'll ever properly forgive myself that I wasn't there. Like, especially for that last week. Like, it's funny. I talk about it now, and when I talked about it, and I talked about it with Morgs, I spoke about it with you, and you kind of look back at a few of those things, and I say it like the way it was, and it was like all these things, were kind of telling me not, like, really, there probably were things there telling me not to go with it, like not to leave. And I think that's probably the biggest regret that I have. I understand, these things happen. It was a unforeseen sort of thing, that has popped up and obviously happened. But man, I think it'll take me a while to properly bury it with it. I mean, we're probably talking 3 weeks now since I first told you, since everything first happened with that, that we're obviously doing this today. So it's taken me a bit, but the lessons that we're going to talk about and I want to chat to you about now are like, they're definitely relevant pushing forward for me in the future. What's gotten me through a lot of it is just throwing myself into work, just working bloody 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. every night because I don't want to think too much about it.
We're going to tap into some of these lessons. Isn't it funny? Because you thought
I know we'll go 15 minutes.
I don't know if there's enough material. It's already 30 minutes and we haven't actually got into the But can I ask you, before we get into the tips, I just want to just paint the picture for people about the reason why you got her in the first place. Like, take us back just a little bit as a tribute to her. Just, because I know there was a few challenges.
Yeah. To be honest, man, I probably don't want to go too much, like too deep into all that sort of stuff, man. Like I've always been, I grew up on a farm. We always grew up with multiple dogs. I've always loved dogs. When I moved out into my house, when I bought the block of dirt and built on that, man, always loved shepherds and just, that was the whole reason I wanted to get her. And mate, she literally, when I say she's been through everything with me, I've spoken about my story with different things on this potty before. But obviously, that's only scratching the surface, barely scratching the surface of everything I've kind of been through with also, and everyone's been through everything, right? But like, everyone's been through a lot of stuff.
It's important to you, whatever you've gone through.
100%. But she just been through all of it, And I remember, there's just so many times and stuff that I remember. Even when I was kind of in the midst of when I'd first started this, and I'd replaced my the business, right? And I'd replaced enough of my income that I didn't have to properly work. And then it was first year of business and I rented out my house. I moved back in with my parents for a little bit there just to kind of find my feet on the next thing. I was kind of moving on for an old relationship and I was relocating somewhere else, but I hadn't figured it out. And I traveled for I traveled for 6 weeks in Europe at that period as well. And I remember I had her at my parents' house and she wasn't that happy there. And I remember just like sitting with her one night and just going like, one day I'm gonna get everything, and we're gonna live in the best place, and you're gonna have all your trees are gonna be on the beach all the time and everything, and just like, I remember she didn't care. She didn't care when I was gone for 6 weeks. It's actually funny. There's a video from my Instagram. It's on like a highlight. It was the only highlight I ever had on my personal Instagram, and it was a video. I think my mum took it or someone took it. When I first got back from Europe after 6 weeks for Liam, obviously who's on Scouting Australia podcast, has been on as well. It was for his wedding in Greece. And I came back, I've been gone for 6 weeks. And her just going absolutely ballistic. Like you see the dogs, they go nuts when the army guys come home from a deployment. Yeah. That was her just going bonkers, just racing around, just going crazy.
Just so excited to see
and that was the house. That's where it was when that was all happening. And I just remember, man, it's just like, it put a lot of things into perspective. And I think like, those little stories, it's just my way of sharing, I guess, how much she meant to me on that end. But I don't really want to dive into all the, too much of the backstory and the background. Just pretty much she'd been with me through it all. And it just put a lot of things into perspective. And I think like one of the big things I wanted to talk about was we always talk about the sacrifice and we were talking about this when we were driving here today. And a lot of people, they look at me and they go, oh, mate, like, I wish I had what you had or I kind of wish I'd made the choices in the journey you'd made when you did it and stuff. And I look at it and a lot of the time, I wish I'd done a lot more in my life, especially during my 20s, from like 21 to 28 or 27 or something like that. I didn't travel for it was like 7 years. I barely traveled, didn't go overseas in that whole period because everything I did, every holiday I took, I put back into property and I'd go and renovate. And
you're saving because you weren't earning a lot of money back then too. No, right? You're saving everything you could.
All. Yeah, bugger all. And I literally never travel. Yeah, holiday for me was going and renovating a property. Like all my money got tipped back in. Mount Gambier. And man, it was like that was my life, right? But I look back and all my mates in their mid-20s, they had trips to Europe, they had trips to America, South America, bloody everywhere, and they had all these balls and they look at me and they go, I wish I did what you did. And I look at them and I go, I wish I'd done what you did. even if I didn't do it on that scale and I still was able to do it and enjoy it. I think that's a big thing is we talk about sacrifice, and I hear some people these days saying to me, especially like young fellas, young guys and girls, and they say, we're going to sacrifice for a few years, we're not going to do anything. And I'm like, I always kind of put things into perspective, and I was like, you don't have to do it as hectically as I did. You can still travel on a reasonable shoestring budget and still actually go and enjoy a bit of life and go do a bit of things. I don't agree with going and blowing $100,000 on a car when you're in your 20s if you're not making huge dollars. Like I think those things can be set aside, but I think the life experiences definitely still need to be done. And this is where I was thinking about when it comes to Taz, like that regret I had, that instant regret, and I still feel it when I'm saying it, thinking about it now of not finishing work at just like 6 o'clock and taking to the beach on a nice day and just letting it go for a bit of a run and have all that. You don't know what you have, as a lot of people have said this before, right? But you don't know what you have until you lose it. And then when you lose it, here's what I can say from personal experience now is like the regret of not doing those things you wish you did is crazy. I was at we went to Riggs this morning. It's like a sauna, hot pool, ice bath sort of joint, right? And there's a dude I see there all the time, Nick. He's a good fellow, another business owner. I always see him there almost every morning. And he was telling me, I was literally chatting to him about this yesterday, and I was talking about, he goes, oh, you're a little bit later than normal. I said, yeah. You as well. And he goes, anyway, and I was like, yeah, I was working till bloody 9, 10 o'clock last night, so I didn't get to bed till a bit late. And he goes, oh, mate, those were the days when I could do that late. And he goes, these days I got the little one and I, I have to finish by 6, It's a 2-hour process of feeding her, bathing her, putting her to bed and everything. And I go, mate, do you remember I told you about my dog before I left? Because I'd seen him the day before on the Wednesday. I went there. It was at gym, and then I went there, and I said, oh, mate, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm heading off. And then I saw him again on the Friday because I hadn't left, right? Things happened on the Thursday. He goes, what happened? I thought you were going overseas. Oh, mate, my dog had some issues. We pushed the trip. I'm not sure if we're even going. And he goes, yeah, how is she? I go, mate, I lost her. And he couldn't believe it, mate. And then I go, man, my biggest regret is not finishing at 6 o'clock every night and taking her for a walk or doing this or doing that. And I was like, man, honestly, like, take it from me. I know it's a different, it's a child compared to a dog sort of thing. But for me, she was my child.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I said, mate, take this into perspective, man. It's something you got to do. You will never look back and regret not working a few extra hours every night. Like you
never do. On your deathbed, you're not going to say, I wish I worked more.
Oh, I wish I worked an extra 2 hours a night and never saw my kid for 5 years. You're never going to say that. You know, you're going to regret not having spent that time with your kid and doing it as well. And it goes for everyone at all stages of life. And I think that's what I was really thinking about it. I've lived a lot. I've done a lot. I'm not super old. I'm not super young anymore either. But I think like I've got enough experience with a lot of this stuff to like really look at it and go, you got to enjoy the journey as well. You know, it's as much about the journey as it is about the destination. And I'm not saying don't sacrifice, don't do this, don't do that. Don't be a dickhead, don't take it the wrong way. But what I'm saying is you got to put everything into perspective and commit to the journey because it works both ways. You also want to be investing, you want to be doing all this good stuff that we're always talking about because your longer term self, including your children and everyone else that you know is in your immediate circle in the future, is going to, obviously including yourself, is going to reap the rewards and the benefits of that. But also don't forget that you got to live now as well. You know, there's no point for 10, 15 years bloody slogging your life away and not enjoying that period of your life to then, in 10, 15 years I'm going to have it. Because you won't have the satisfaction. You probably won't have a family. You're going to have lost a lot of things along the way as well. You got to enjoy yourself, enjoy things along there. Even if you're 20s, if you're 20 and you're hoping to retire by 30, 35, don't look back at 35 and go, shit, all right, mad, I'm retired at 35. I've got 200 grand a year coming in. Awesome. But I didn't do anything in my 20s. Like it's just, you're not going to enjoy that. And I think like, that's why today it's a bit of a different conversation. It's a bit of a different topic, but it's the biggest thing I just thought like, it just made me look back on a lot of different things. Obviously most of the stuff was with Tara, but I reflected a lot after it. And, you know, not doing things along the way as well for that sacrifice piece. It's got to be a balance. There's got to be a balance involved with it.
Yeah, because you can easily get into a default setting back, right? So let's just say now, I'm assuming moving forward, you'd be like, you know what is it about identifying what are the important things? Because sometimes you just forget the important things or your priorities and you neglect the priorities because you think the priority is, you know, doing another deal or helping another client. Do you think it's now given you a bit more context as to, okay, what are the most important things in my life? Is it my time with my, whatever it is? Is it booking the trips now? They're the rocks. They're non-negotiables or the fun time, or it's your family or your mates or your catch-ups. Yeah. And then jotting out the rest around that. Because people listening, and I've been there as well, is, I've got the best intentions. Yeah, you're right. Fuck, you're right. I know I should be doing that. A week later on, you're grinding it out at working till late, and then you get. How do you think? And this is going to be a process, but how do you think you can stop yourself from going back to that default grinding and?
I think it's breaking the habits and taking stock of what you've got as well and what you're doing. You know, one of the things that immediately came to my mind is I've never been one to flash the cash. I'm not that sort of guy, like trying to make myself look super expensive or anything. But I've always loved my cars, right? And I bought my cars last year and all the rest of it. But I made enough a long time ago to be able to afford a Ferrari. But I feel like it was way too early for me to do it just because. And like even like little things like that, it's like buying the things I want to buy because, man, imagine we drive out of the driveway today and we get taken out by a truck. You know what I mean? Like just worked the last 15 years of my life. I slogged that middle 7 years. You know what I mean? Didn't do anything. Barely enjoyed it. I'm starting to enjoy myself now, but still not giving myself the things that I want. And that's why I think like I'm at the point where I can get that sort of stuff now. And it's just kind of changing my thinking of the things I want to do. It's even like the holidays. I still always put the holidays off. That holiday was actually supposed to be in July. But I was like, I got too much going on in July. I'm going to push it to August.
And then you end up booking it last minute. Gets a bit stressful. You're trying to cram it all in.
But you look at what happened. If I was gone in August, if I was gone in July and came back in August, I would have been here. You know, and this is the thing. It's just like prioritizing the things that are important. I think the biggest issue in modern day, and I know this is especially the case with me, you get your head is so full of everything going on, you miss the important things that you gotta really focus on. You know what I mean? And I think like for me, and I've actually done this very, very well since I've gotten back. I used to do this really, really well until business got bigger and there's more moving parts and more things going on and you get pulled in all these different directions. But since I came back, I realized I just got to be extremely cutthroat with my time, with the different things that I do, right? And the different things that I'm doing, so that I still have time to still enjoy myself. Because the stupid thing, sometimes I look back at myself, I'm like, I haven't needed to work for about 5 years. I probably work harder now than I ever have in my entire life. You know, and I look at it now, I'm just like, it's just dumb. Like it's dumb for me at this point to work as hard as I do with that. I'm not saying I will always work and I'll always work hard, but I don't need to do 12-hour days. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason for me at this point to do that. And I think that's where I just got to I got to prioritize what's important. I got to carve a few different things back out and yeah, man, gotten to this point, start living again, you know, and properly.
And also just on that, because you can easily fall into the trap. And we were talking about how big the team has grown.
Yeah.
That has its own challenges.
Yeah, yes, of course.
So is it a matter of maybe looking at, and for people that are in their own story, don't always wishing that more is bigger, more is better.
Yeah.
Because the bigger is better. There's a trade-off. There's the law of exchange, right?
You know, there's this other huge thing that you're 100% right, man. And I get some people and they want to build $300,000 portfolios, but they only make $100,000 a year. You know, $150 grand a year portfolio is going to give them, that person making $100,000 a year, the best life, better life than they ever could probably imagine. You don't need to own everything, right? This is something I learned very, very young. You don't need to, I can't remember where I read this or where I heard about this or whatever. You don't need to own everything. So I always had this in my mind. I was going to own a house in bloody Switzerland and America and bloody everywhere. And so I could go holiday there. Airbnb's changed the game. Don't own anything. Just go own your own home. But just go Airbnb, go travel these different things, enjoy that. Man, if that's your lifestyle, and let's say you work for 6 months and then you travel for 6 months, man, you only need 150K passive. You're sweet. You're staying almost anywhere you want and you're living the best lifestyle ever. But so many people, they kind of come in and they think they need that much, but they've never actually worked it out, how much they need. And I think that's the thing, man. Everyone's got to take stock and put things into actual proper perspective as to what they need and what is the commitment and the sacrifice they have to do it. But then how can you still enjoy? I think that's the point, man. I don't want to harp on and go too long on this sort of thing, but that's just where it really comes back to, man. How much can they... What do they need to do to still enjoy life now? But then what do they also need to do to still get the result they're chasing along the way and along the journey? So yeah, man, so they can still get the best of both worlds.
Because some people listening could think, oh, you know what? Stuff it. It's all too hard. I'm just going to go and live my life. You never know. There's no guarantees and all that. And I suppose you don't want people to take that away from this, because the reality is if you don't do anything, the universe isn't going to reward you by giving you all of these things. So you're just kicking it down the road because you're going to pay for it down the road. 100%. Right?
100%. And that's what I'm saying. You need to do both sides. Yeah. It just seems to be a balance. Yeah. And I think this is the thing of and I love our listeners because almost everyone is hustlers. You know what I mean? Everyone's pushing hard. For a lot of people, this is their side hustle. They might be working their main job and another job, and then they're building the portfolios as well. And that's mad, you know, and that compounding effect, I talk to so many people about, you go hard early in the journey, even if you let there and sit your portfolio do a thing, it's going to be mad. Yeah. Even if you work really hard for 2-3 years and then enjoy 2-3 years after that and come back to it and then start the cycle again. But if you build yourself a 4, 5, 6 property portfolio before you do that, you're gonna be laughing, you're gonna be killing it. And that's where I just think it's balanced sacrifice, you know, as to whether that's doing one a year, you know, for 10 years, and taking that real balance, or go hard for the next 2 to 3 years, maybe do 2 a year for 3 years, build 6, and then 2, 3 years, go do what you want. You know, it's just putting into balance, and every person is different because every person will want a different result. Every person will want a different journey on the way through.
Yeah.
And I think it's balancing that to get the best of both worlds and just to get, you know, to get the end prize that we're all chasing, we're all hoping for. If you're listening to this podcast, you're trying to get a better future, especially if you've listened this far through to one that's not even really about property. You know, you're trying and you're pushing for a better future. You just got to find what is the balance going to work best for you. Have you got to go hard for 2, 3 years and do it like that, or are you gonna build a balanced lifestyle in the way you do it as well, and just, you know,
and also keeping the blinkers on for what your scenario, because they could easily listen and go, "Oh, Sammy's got this and this and that," or "My mate's got this."
Yeah.
You can get into that trap that. Because there's always going to be someone who's got more than you. And so I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but one of my mentors always used to say, you know, you're on the horse track, it's a 1-horse race. Put the blinkers on, you're the only horse in the race. And otherwise, because you're constantly looking at everyone else. And so their 300 grand passive, further to your point, isn't actually what they really want. It's what they perceive their friends will think, oh, you're a legend, or gee, you do. Like, and that's hard to combat.
I'll tell you something. People think that when they're early in the journey. And even I probably thought that up until I got about 20, because I had very, very ingrained in my head looking at everyone and caring about what everyone else was doing. You get to a certain point, we've spoken about this before, where you just don't give a fuck about anyone else and their opinion and where they are, because you've proven what you've done. You're a proven product. It just doesn't matter. You don't care anymore. People like you for who you are. Awesome. If they don't, mate, there's a door. See you later. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And I think this is the thing. People just focus on your own journey, because you are 100. I promise you will get to a point where you don't care what other people think, or where other people are at. It's funny these days, man. I don't even look at other buyers agents. I don't care if people, unless they piss me off with overpaying for shit, then I care. But if it's not that, other than that, if they're not coming into contact with me, I'm not looking at other people and what they're doing, and people are doing better than us or worse than us, and laughing at the ones that are worse and cursing the ones that are better. I don't care, because we're on our journey. We're helping all of our people. We're doing the best job we can on every deal for every client. That's all I care about.
Yeah,
I don't care what anyone else is doing.
Yeah.
And I think, man, like it's really powerful. And I think my mindset has changed massively around that. I got brought up in a very scarcity mindset family. And it has changed so much in the last few years. And if you're the same, whichever way you are, just try and keep thinking, just be purely focusing on your own journey and what you're trying to do. And just focus on that, because, you know, like myself, I always made less than all my mates. All my mates made more than me, even though I knew I was very good at a few certain things, and I was extremely hard worker. Everyone made more than me. And I always felt shit, because everyone, like, they made more, they had nicer cars, like, you know, they could have just whatever. I just always felt bad, and I was always jealous. Quite honestly, I was jealous about people making a lot more money than me. And then slowly, what happened over time, and this is what the moral of this story. Like, who cares what income you're on? Like, I bought my first property making 30-something thousand a year. I built, you know, circa 20 odd properties making less than 100 grand a year. So it is 100% possible. What you got to understand is you have to play the field that you know, you have to play in the competition that you're in. So if you're making 50K a year and you got 50 grand, you can still do a lot. If you're making 50 grand and you got nothing saved, or you've only got a little bit saved, you definitely can still do a lot. It just takes longer, and it's just going to be a different journey. But don't worry about anyone else's journey. Worry about yours, because you can't affect, if you don't make 200 and if you're making 50 and your mate makes 200, you can't have the same journey as them if you don't have that same earning capacity. You just got to focus on what you can do, and then just put that in the marketplace and just do that, and focus on that, because I guarantee, mate, you can make, doesn't matter what position you're in. Once you get started, you make the right purchases, right location, right price, all the good stuff. You do all that, it's going to do the heavy lifting for you.
You know, we're talking about the moments with Tara and celebrating those moments and all that sort of stuff. What about for people that are buying properties, or, you know, often you have a conversation with someone, they've done a few and they're like, oh, no, I need to get more. I need it. They're never happy or celebrating the little moments.
You said that to me. Very early, you said that to me.
So what would you say to people out there? And I know we've spoken about this, but I fall in the trap myself. You have this, you know, you buy one property or you do something and you just glaze over it. And maybe it's a tall poppy syndrome. Maybe you subconsciously you're like, you know what, don't brag. You don't, easy
response to this. Figure out what you're actually chasing and just focus purely on that. And it doesn't matter because, you can't be upset about, I'm only at property 8 when you're chasing 10 because you're pretty well there. Or I'm not happy if I'm only on 2 and I'm chasing 10, but you're only 12 months into the journey. You've done pretty well for 12 months into the journey. So I think just like you have to create your game plan in what you're chasing. You got to set what your goal is, create the strategy to get there. And just get started.
What about
don't worry about how long it takes, whatever.
Yeah, but the celebrating say you each one acknowledging, you know what? Because I did this property, I'm going to go on a holiday to Bali or do something like anchor something. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, do you find the more that you do, if you don't take stock and put things in place, at what point? Because there's always going to be another 50 properties or another 20 million.
Yeah. But this is what I said to you. So I missed that whole piece. So like in the early days when I was doing it, I never celebrated anything because I didn't have the money, and I was just like, nah, save everything. Like I literally buy properties. People are, holy shit, you got 6 properties? And like I'd tell a mate or something, I was like, yeah. But like it wouldn't mean enough to me because I'm looking at someone else who's got 50. And I'm like, 6 isn't enough. And yet I'm 25 and making 50, 60 grand a year. It's a ridiculous result, but I'm looking at everything else.
Yes.
So I missed that whole thing because then by the time I kind of got to the point where I was more accepting of the fact that I had done well, I was probably at 30 properties, so 31, there's not really a win, you know what I mean? I celebrate the kind of 10s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't celebrate the individuals. Yeah. But I think you should. But I think it's all within reason. Just because you buy 1 property, 2 properties, you don't go for a holiday to Bali. I think it's all within reason. You know?
Okay. You know the one thing just about, I was listening to this audiobook about a puppy, right? A dog and training the dog.
Yeah.
And they said, and we're about to wrap up, but they said when you're training the dog.
Are you trying to get better or something?
There's no use after, if the dog does a wee in the kitchen and you come 5 minutes later and you try and punish the dog doesn't know
what it's being punished for.
The dog lives in that exact moment of exactly what it's doing at that time. And what you said, that bubble and looking at the beach.
Yeah, 100%.
So if there's something to take away, that just sort of triggered to me. It was like, fuck, what a metaphor for life. Like, yes, we've got our own problems and we're always thinking about other things and we all do that. But if you can take stock at one point and just try and have that immediacy of what is happening right now. And I'm guilty of it. You know, the missus will call, I'm on the computer. She's like, I know you're not concentrating on the call. And you got to catch yourself out, turn the laptop, close the laptop and focus on what you're doing. You know, what would you take that away? Like, do you think that is something to try and be more in the moment as opposed to constantly looking ahead and looking forward of everything?
Of course. Yeah. No, 100%, man. It's something I get stuck in as well. Like I'm always looking and planning for the, I've always done it. But yeah, man, you definitely have to take stock and enjoy the now. Yeah. And like you have to do it. You know, you absolutely have to do it. So, yeah, man. And that's why I think, you know, you're setting your goals, you're chasing your different things, but maybe you leave yourself your little budget so you can take a little holiday every year and still make sure you're still enjoying life. And the crazy thing is, man, it's like I look at with stuff with Tara, like, man, it literally costs me nothing. It costs me nothing. I live a few hundred meters to the beach. I'll walk it down the beach. Like the joy I got out of that every night and that she got out of it every night. It's not like you need to go and spend a large amount of money to take stock and to enjoy the now. True. And to enjoy the now.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's a really important thing, man. It's like, I'm not going to sacrifice. It's just like, mate, what could you do in the now to really enjoy where you are and make sure you know, like you're saying, super present in it as well. But
mate, I think
we're good, man. I think that was good.
How do you feel?
Man, I'm glad we did. I'm glad we chatted about it. It felt weird, man. I kind of felt like a betrayal if I didn't bring her up and do a little, I guess, like almost like a little tribute, little testimonial to her. So man, I'm glad I did it. I think we covered off some good points off the back of it as well. Yeah, man, I hope people enjoyed it and took a bit of stock and learnt from the lessons that I essentially got off the back of it as well. Because that's what it all comes down to, man. The reason I wanted to do it was because of the lessons that I immediately felt straight after everything had happened, and just make sure people, you know, are living in the now, enjoying now, as well as planning for an epic future.
Well, there's some golden nuggets here, and if you're listening to this and you're taking a lot out of it, you know, especially the loved ones around you and just not taking those moments for granted, being clear about what your focus is, stay true to your own beliefs, keep the people close to you. If you care about someone and you want to spend time with them, don't put that off. Yeah. You know, no one, 100%. Don't be a hero, because at the end of the day, none of us are getting out of here alive. So you might as well focus on telling the people that you really care about, whether it's your pet, your family or your friends or whatever. I mean, it is true, you know, and I think it's great that we spoke about this because this is where the rubber hits the road. You can talk about property and money and finances and have $1 billion, but at the end of the day, the connection between one person and the other and how you feel with that person, that is what life is about. It is not how much money you leave with. It is the impact you have with people. And I'm proud of you for sharing. I know you were a bit uncertain about talking about it, but the listeners, I'm sure, will appreciate your honesty and your openness, and of course you've let us into your life and what's been playing you know through your mind, and I think it's been extremely valuable.
I appreciate it, Jimmy. I appreciate it, mate, and I appreciate you pushing me to do it as well because it was a tricky one to figure out if I wanted to or not, and the way we'd run it, but mate, I enjoyed it. I think it was good. We chatted about it. I hope the listeners took some value out of it, man. So once again, I appreciate you coming up, buddy, and joining us for it.
Pleasure,
guys. Thanks very much for tuning in, as always. I hope you enjoyed today's poddy or took a bit out of it as well. I know it was a little bit different from where we normally go with this sort of stuff, but I do hope you still took some great value out of it. If you did take any great value out of it, please send it on to anyone else you think might also. Maybe there's someone else hurting out there as well, and it puts a few things into perspective. Or maybe send it to your partner that's not, maybe not giving you enough attention. Not taking you to the beach enough for a 6 p.m. walk.
It was working too much. Tell them to listen to this.
If you loved it as well, guys, please leave us a 5-star review as always. We're always looking to keep building this community and this base of people that talk and think about property the same way that we do. And obviously helping us with reviews and ratings and whatnot really helps us on that front as well. So anyway, guys, thank you once again for tuning in. Another Scouting Australia podcast. Jimmy, thank you once again for tuning in. And until next week, guys, catch you later.